Hey, everybody, welcome to Dental Voice with Zyris. My name is Rolando, and today we get to hear from Dr. Kartik Antani. Now, I'm especially excited about this episode because what he is going to be sharing with us is an issue that literally every single dental practice deals with. What is that, right? It's teams, it's staffing, it's how do you create and nurture a high performing team. So, Dr. Kartik, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate this.
Hey, Ro, thanks for having me. I appreciate it more than you
Oh,
know. You
you're
have me.
being kind. So jumping in, let's do this. You have, or maybe I'm missing. I'm putting words in your mouth, but you've kind of broken the code with regard to creating a team and actually working in an environment that is productive, that is high performing. Tell us a little bit about your practice and about your team.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, as everything should be. We always improve, but we are at now 3 locations, and we have a fourth entity too, which we can talk about later. But that's how we've grown our team. We started from one. We made a ton of mistakes along the way. Uh, every mistake you can think of, or your audience can think of, we probably made it. Maybe maybe not some of the more illegal ones, but the routine mistakes people tend to make, hiring the wrong people, not giving them enough support, not training them well enough. We've done all of that, and we've learned from that, and that's how we've been able to, amass or accumulate a good team, a team that we can depend on, a team that loves to work with us. We actually went on a work for that recently, and just people that come to work, they love what they do, they help people, patients, they help our communities, they help each other. But it took a while to get there. It wasn't overnight. And like I said, it's a work in progress. Constantly, we have to reevaluate what we can be doing better, how we can be a better uh, a group of people that other team members want to work for.
So wait. I'm curious. You said you made all the mistakes that everybody makes, and you mentioned a couple. Help us understand how did you realize that those were actual mistakes? How did you
Yeah.
discover that those were oops?
Oops moments. Yeah, you come to realize when a team member walks out or someone's having interpersonal issues, and you realize that okay, this person's maybe not the right fit, or your practice evolves. You go from doing certain procedures and certain things to elevating your practice, and then the staff members sometimes can't be coachable. And how do you find that out? You find out the hard way usually, where you realize that maybe this person's not the right fit, or they make a mistake over and over again, and then it's not a mistake anymore. Now it's a habit.
So wait, how long? This is amazing. We work with a lot of dental practices, and you'll see that they kind of live with, or they deal with, or they choose not to. How long did you give it before you said, okay, folks, this isn't working? What time frame? What did you use for that?
It's a good question. In the beginning, when you start out and you're depending on whoever you can find, that runway, that timeline was a long timeline. We gave people years to improve and get better. And now,
Did you give years? Did you give years?
yeah, oh, of course, yeah, because we didn't know any better, or we couldn't find anyone that could do better. And honestly, it was. I don't think of it as a waste. I think it's an investment that you spent the initial couple of years weeding out the wrong people. So hopefully, the rest of your career, you have to weed out less people. And now that runway is shorter. If someone's not getting it in 90 days, 6 months, even that is too long. If they make a big mistake in the first month, or they're just negligent, you got to go right away. Now, here's the thing: people can make mistakes and they can learn and improve. That's fine. We need to be able to trust our staff to do that. But being careless or being negligent, there's nothing you can do about that. And that's where the whole thing of aptitude versus attitude comes in. If you have a good attitude, if you have a good head on your shoulders, if you have good ethics and morals and things like that, you're probably going to do great. And you may need some coaching along the way, but you will get the aptitude up to your attitude. But if you have the worst attitude, you can be an expert, but if you're not a team player, if you're not ethical, then that expertise is wasted. It's going to drag down your attitude all the way down to your aptitude level.
How did you, as it takes a long time to come to that realization, how did you find the courage to actually sit there and say, I have to do, because again, it's not an easy thing to do, especially when you're already kind of struggling with resources. What did you do to get that, and how did you get there?
We took on a lot of the stress on our own shoulders. For example, let's say someone's not doing their job. You know what? I'll do it for them. Let them just, let them do what they can do. But ultimately, it gets to a point where either you as a person are overburdened and you're not enjoying your life, or the growth of your office or the growth of your organization slows down and stops, or even in some cases reverses. And it is a tough call to make, especially when you're new, because you are worried, you're scared that you might lose people, you're worried that your reputation may tank. But honestly, every single person that I've lost, for a good reason, for a reason that was worth losing them for, they were replaced by someone who's better. And as a group, every time we lost a person that wasn't up to the standards, and replaced them with someone better, our group elevated too. We were able to go from one practice to multiple. We were able to go from basic dentistry to now considering the more of the overall health of the patient, doing more procedures. Everything becomes, a big snowball effect in a positive manner.
So I love the context around that, because you're right, it's about your own personal growth. Let me ask you this: you just strike me as such a level-headed. You're kind of chill. There's a wonderful, demeanor to you. Have you always been this way?
No, I have not always been that way.
Oh,
I think I was raised in a calm environment. My parents, I think, did a good job. Shout out to my parents. But and part of it is your natural innate personality. If you're a calm person, but it wasn't always the case. You become a doctor, you become a little bit of an egotistical person. Even if you're a nice guy, you feel like you've accomplished something, and you feel that sense of maybe pride, self-esteem, and that can cloud your judgment sometimes. Sometimes you get frustrated and you don't know how to deal with it, so you can lash out. Been through that, didn't do anything crazy, but definitely got a better control of my emotions over time. And that is part of it is your personality. Part of it is learned behavior. You have to get there. You have to become a calm, level-headed person as you go. And you have to be like a duck on water. If you ever look at a duck, it's really smooth sailing on the surface. Okay? But underneath the surface, it's doing this. It's going crazy trying to keep going. So a lot of times you come across a frustrating situation, you come across something that you don't know how to do, and that's going to happen. No one's born an expert, no one's born perfect. But you just got to be like a duck, level-headed and calm on the surface, because people are looking at you. If you're going ballistic in front of people, they're going to lose trust in you, or it's going to snowball into a whole thing of negative emotions. So on the level, you got to be calm and collected, and underneath the level, do whatever you have to do to keep going.
But how do you? It seems almost unsustainable. How do you maintain that, or how do you get to the point where you realize or you recognize, yeah, I this is an operating mode that I have to maintain. How do you do that? What advice would you give people to get there and stay there?
And it's not easy, man. It's a work in progress all the time. Some days you don't feel like it. Sometimes you want to lash out on people for not doing the basic things that they should be doing. But that's how you create negative situations. That's how you break away from the positive vibe. That's how you burn bridges. So it takes practice. It takes a lot of self, introspection, and think about what you're doing as a person. And the days that you do feel like being a little bit wild or a little bit, just keep in mind that it's not worth it to irritate anybody. And you attract more things with being sweet to people. That doesn't mean you have to be a pushover, But
Right.
when it comes to your team, you can be a reasonable person. You can coach them, you can guide them. And if they still don't get it, yeah, you may have to replace a few people. But even that you can do in a positive way.
So I love that, and I love the context around a work in progress. Now you've mentioned trust several times here, and when you look at the context of our discussion here, we kind of labeled it trust is about letting go. What does that mean? What does that mean?
You got to delegate. And honestly, I'm terrible at it, but I'm better than I used to be. And you have to be able to coach your people, teach them what to do, and then be able to delegate. Definitely follow up. You don't want to just delegate and ignore the issues. Delegate, but follow up and trust them that they will do the job. If they
Yeah.
don't, if they don't, if they can get you from a 0 to a 50% progress, okay, pick up from that 50% and work together as a team. But you can't do everything yourself. It's not possible. All you're going to do is burn out, like I was. The results will decrease. If you don't have a team doing stuff for you and helping you along, you're not going to get to that 100% at A plus. So let them get you as far as they can get you. And then together, you can get further. Either you're going to burn out or they're going to burn out if you don't have teamwork. So trust, delegate, follow up, have that teamwork. But here's the thing. I know you want to talk about trusting your team, but you got to trust yourself too. That's a little curveball for you. So trust is about letting go, but it also means not just externally, but also internally.
So wait. Let's. I love that concept. It's not just about trusting the team. It's also about trusting yourself. What do you mean by that? What do you when you say trusting yourself? What's the context for that?
Look, man, dentistry and any business really, there is a lot of imposter syndrome. You sometimes feel like you don't know what you're doing. On a good day, you might think you're awesome. On a bad day, you might think, do I really know what I'm doing? The idea is you got to trust yourself because there is a gut feeling, there is a certain level of intellect. There's a reason why you're doing something. And you may not get the result that same minute, but you're working up to something bigger in life. So you got to trust yourself. And there are days that you don't trust yourself. You feel like you're making mistakes. You feel like you're an imposter. Dentistry is stressful. Dentistry can be an isolation gig where it's just you and not much camaraderie sometimes. And that creates self-doubt. So you got to be able to trust yourself and be positive, and you will get there. And I've learned that because as I've grown from one location to 2 to 3, and now more of an Arias situation that we'll talk about later, it can feel some days that, okay, this is not good. But guess what? Turns out fine if you look at it back in the rearview mirror. And you got to be able to do that by trusting yourself first.
Wow, I love that. Trust is about trusting yourself. What would you say is the biggest difficulty of letting go? What would you say for those out there who are sitting there going, what is the biggest thing about letting go that you would say is important?
The biggest thing about letting go, as dentists or as people in business, we have a certain type A personality.
Yes.
We want to see that perfect result. The reality is that perfect is very rarely attainable. Great is the enemy of good, right? Great is the enemy of good. So if you're trying to get to that A plus and you're struggling, you're probably not going to get anywhere. But if you can settle for a B plus or an A, good job. So part of that delegation, that letting go, is understand that you're going to get good results. You may not get the exact perfect result you wanted, but it's still better than where you started. And that takes a lot of, again, introspection and trial and error. I know a little bit of deep breaths and woosah and
right.
Trust the process. And again, you're gonna be fine, but it takes a little bit of stepping back. Look at it from a little bit more zoomed out view, and realize that you have accomplished things. You are going to accomplish things, but let go. And the hardest part is that mindset. Once you crack the mindset, delegation is not that bad.
It's interesting. The you mentioned, letting go is very much tied to perfection. And yeah, in dentistry, through dental school and throughout the entire engagement, it's about being perfect, right?
Hmm.
And your message about, sometimes it isn't, but it's better than where you came from. And I think, to your point, people lose sight of that. And because of that, they're focusing on what hasn't happened as opposed to what has happened. Did I
Right.
get that right?
That's it. That's exactly it. I mean, you're too far, too busy looking far into the future and thinking the stuff that you don't have or the things that you haven't been able to accomplish yet. So once in a while, while you're struggling about the future thoughts, if you take a quick look in the rearview mirror, realize how much you've gotten accomplished, you'll probably trust yourself more. You will learn to let go more, and you'll learn to trust the process, your team, yourself, whatever the universe has planned for you. You just got to give it a little bit of a quick view in the rear view. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Give your team the benefit of the doubt. See what you've accomplished so far, and then take a chill pill. Relax. It'll be okay.
It's interesting. Trusting a team, a lot of it has to do with you, and that whole mindset. It's almost counterintuitive because, oh, I got to trust my team. Wait, I have to trust myself first, and that's huge. It's interesting. You mentioned that your practice is growing, and you've gone from one location to two locations to three. What's the experience? Because when people are physically with you, it's easy to, I'm going to use the word trust, that they're doing what they want because you can kind of see it. What happens when you can't? How do you now not get a little, anxiety around, oh, I wonder what they're doing?
That's normal to have that anxiety to feel like, okay, if I'm in one office today, are the other two offices on fire? Did something blow up? And I've been there where I would constantly check in on people and micromanage and, did you do this today? Did you do that today? I still do a little bit for some of the more important things, but I'm not going to do all of it and it's not possible. So also the other thing is, you got to just give it time. Eventually, even if you're the most, type A micromanaging person, you're going to hit your limit where you're going to get burned out. And when you get burned out, your body or your mind are probably going to say, all right, that's enough. Let's learn how to trust people. But like you asked, what happens when you do have that situation where are you thinking about your other location? Are you thinking about what your team members are doing? Of course, you do. But some days I'm so busy, I don't even check in on the other offices. And at the end of the day, I get the reports and everything's fine. When I first started out, I wouldn't even go on trips because I would feel, oh man, if I leave my office, if I leave my business, what's going to happen? Nothing. It's going to be fine. And if something does happen, you deal with it. But you got to live your life too.
Yeah. If something's going to happen, you're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah,
For people who are currently in that space where they're right on the edge of letting go, right on the edge, but still haven't, what would you say are the top three things that they need to do to get themselves over that? What are things that they can do right now? Or let's start with this. What are signs that they aren't letting go? If you were to kind of sum up from your experience.
So me personally, I was getting burned out. So the first thing I did was start letting go of small things. Start small. Maybe don't let go of the big project, but start small. See if you can delegate one thing to someone, delegate, but follow through, follow up with them, help them out, and see how they do.
What's an example of that? Give me an example of what I'm going to say is, for you, a small thing.
Yeah, let's say, so every holiday season, we send out gift baskets to the people that refer patients to us, or sometimes even patients we refer to. I even give gifts to the endodontists and orthodontists that we work with, just because I always feel like, why is the specialist always giving us the gift? Let's give something back. So, for the first year, I did everything myself, and then I realized I don't have time for this. I can't do it. I want to. So, one day I decided, okay, let me delegate it to a staff member, see what they do, see how it turns out. And then over time, we started to do more and more. So now, for example, we are in the middle of re-credentialing with a lot of the medical and dental insurance companies. So I realized, there's no way I can go through all these forms myself. Let's hire an outside firm to do that. But internally, let's delegate it to someone. So we delegated it to a very trusted team member. And yeah, there are a couple of glitches here and there, but they get us to 90%. The other 10%, we can go together. So I started out by doing something small, like, you know what, let's delegate, I don't know, I'm going to be out of town. Let's delegate painting the walls, right? Something simple as that. But now we're at the point where we're like, hey, you know what, let's delegate the entire insurance credentialing thing out. It's a really big in the room. It's a huge project. I don't want to deal with it. And whether I do the paperwork or someone else does the paperwork, it's still going to get done, probably better by someone else than me. So it takes, those are the first few steps they should take. So that's step number one, start with something small. Step two, you're going to get that urge to start micromanaging again. You're going to start that urge, I'm going to keep this project to myself, that I'm not going to trust someone. You need to do that. You have to force yourself to delegate. So that's the second step. And the third thing you asked me, I really don't know. I'm going to go back to saying, trust yourself. If things don't work out with delegating or trusting your team member with it, you'll find a way to fix it. So trust yourself with that. And then if you are on the edge of burning out and you're like, I just can't deal with these projects, do those three. Start small, trust your team, trust yourself, see what happens. And if it doesn't work out, you can always solve it later.
I like that. And, it's the context around, you have to let it, starting small helps, because now you're not, delegating the entire ledger to someone that you don't quite know, or the entire value of your practice to that. And as it happens, you start discovering, wait a minute, I didn't have to do that all alone. Now, this idea of burnout is a big issue, because often people get there because it's a slow burn over time. You don't realize until one day you wake up and you're exhausted, or you wake up and you don't want to go in and you don't want to deal with that. How do you overcome that, and how do you come back from that? You said you were right there. How did you come back from that?
Again, it's a work in progress. So when I first started out, we bought our first practice when I just turned 30. And we were all gung-ho, we're going to do everything, and sleep doesn't matter, and we can work
Get that later.
In a year if it's a leap year, right? But you're right, just over time, your body changes, your priorities change, you want to enjoy your life, you don't want to keep working all the time. So over time, the burnout sinks in, and if you don't control it, it will consume you. So I was getting to the point where maybe I was even beyond the point where I was kind of thinking, I don't want to do any of this. But now you're in too deep. Now you've got multiple practices. You can't just up and leave. It's not a job. Now you're responsible for a whole organization. So then you have to think about it and come to terms and say, okay, I'm burning out. I don't want to burn out. Well, let's do something about it, right? And it's a combination of multiple things. Maybe going for more walks. Maybe doing more of your hobbies. Going for drives. That's one of my hobbies. Let's go on a random trip somewhere. Realize that if you're not in the business, it's not going to burn down to ashes. And if it does, it'll rise up like a phoenix and you'll be fine. And it's a combination of your personal time commitments to yourself, to your family, to your hobbies, to your life, and your professional commitment to your business, to your team, to your business partner in my case. So the burnout will sink in. It will consume you. You will start to hate everything you're doing, and you will feel like you're stuck. And I think that's pretty common for a lot of people. But you gotta pull yourself back in. You have to save yourself from that.
I love it. Are there people that you can reach out to help you? Were there other people that you could kind of lean on?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, you have to have trust, like we're talking about today. So you have to trust your group members, your people in your team, your staff members, your business partner if you have one. If you have a leadership team, you got to be able to trust them, to go to them and say, hey, I'm burning out, I need a little help. Also, a lot of people in the dental community are so awesome. I mean, if you are really burning out, if you do feel stressed, reach out to some of these people that are out there. There's a lot of Facebook groups out there that will help you. You know, there's Dr. Eric Block, Dr. Alan Stern, there's Dr. Paul Goodman of Nachos. So I also rely on the DEO a lot, the Dentist Entrepreneur Organization. They've helped me a lot. And not just for burnout, but even like, finding the right steps to take for onboarding a new doctor. Right? There's a lot of resources out there, but you got to look for them and you have to trust them. And then you'll feel, okay, you know what? I do have a backup system. I do have people that might be able to help me out. The dental community itself is big. It's a positive community for the most part. But if you don't reach out to people, it can also be a very lonely place to be as a dentist. You know, if you don't reach out to your local doctors, if you don't make the priority to get the help you need or get the ideas that you need, then yeah, you're not going to get much out of it. But so many resources out there, free resources, paid resources, so many out there.
You know, and I love the context around, yeah, a lot of it sits on your shoulders, but recognize you're not in this alone. You've got your team members. And a lot of people forget that. You've got other resources, and the people that you mentioned are fantastic. I love the demeanor or the context behind how, you know what, your practice isn't going to burn down, but if it does, you're going to rebuild it, and that's how you're going to do it. And start with yourself. And it's interesting, the advice and the dialogue that you keep giving us to start with yourself. If you were to kind of sum this up, everything you've been talking about here, and give a message out to our viewers, to people who are sitting here, what would that message be?
I'm going to stick with the title of the show. Trust is about letting go. You have to trust yourself first, which means you have to let go of your insecurities. You have to let go of the imposter syndrome, the self-doubt, because everyone has it. There's not a single person out there that doesn't have it. You have to work at it to get better. So let go of those bad things, and even let go of some of the things you can't control. I mean, you can't control the weather, so who cares, right? So that's what it's about. That's how you trust yourself. And then start trusting your team. Especially if you're trying to grow or build an organization, you're not going to do it alone. There's no way. So you got to be able to let go of certain things, trust people. But first, it starts with you. And that's basically how I would sum it up.
I love it. And, it's the mindset around it is so powerful because we forget that we have the ability to do that. And we look elsewhere for it, or we point elsewhere, when in fact we should be looking at ourselves. So really appreciate that context. It looks like, well, you, in addition to your practice, you're also the CEO of a company called, is it Araya?
Yeah, it's called Araya. It's a new company that one of our doctors formed, Dr. Fisher Ham. It stands for Albuquerque Restorative Integrative Airway Health.
Oh, wow.
That's
and what is that all
idea. About? It's all about the outer beauty and inner health. So that's the model that he came up with. And I have no imagination to do that, come up with a model like that, or even the name Araya. That's all his credit. And it stands for outer beauty, which is things like, wrinkles and liver spots and spider veins and things like that. But internal health, inner health, right? So one of the big focus of that is airway health, sleep apnea, sleep disordered breathing, how we as dentists can see so many signs of that before physicians can sometimes, because we're seeing the patient twice a year. We're seeing them for cracked teeth, we're seeing them for wear marks, we're seeing them for TMJ pain, jaw pain.
Right.
We're looking at their airway every time we do sedation. And now we look at airway even when we see them for cleaning. So that's the integrative part. So outer beauty is stuff like, let's use a laser for the lip plumping, and let's remove some spots and make the patient feel
better about themselves.
Yeah. And maybe they can have some letting go of some of their self-doubts, right? And the inner health portion is how can we as dentists integrate the airway health of the patient, the systemic health of the patient as much as we can. We can rely on local physicians. We can rely on local, technicians, and we can rely on so many healthcare providers. But we have to be open to that. We can't just be, I'm going to fix one tooth today, and I'm going to forget about the rest of the teeth. And when the other one cracks, I'm going to fix that. I'm going to keep going down that road until the patient ends up with a crown full of a mouthful of crowns.
Full of crowns.
Yeah. Or why don't we talk to your physician and see, why are you not sleeping correctly? Why do you have chronic pain? Why is your heart rate always elevated? Why do you have back pain? Let's figure that out together. So that's what Araya stands for. And, we're just getting started. It's a lot of work, but this is so important. It's so important to our existing patients. It's so important to our future patients. It's so important to the community that we serve in the New Mexico area. And I think overall, more people should be doing it.
That's cool. Well, I love that by enabling your team, by trusting your team, by letting go, it enables you to do other things. And I love the prospect around it. If people wanted to reach out to you or ask you questions, what would be the best way to do that? Right?
The best way to reach out to me is my email address, kantani@gmail.com. You can also find me on social media on LinkedIn. I'm trying to be better about LinkedIn. I'm not always on there, but I'm trying. Facebook, Instagram, all of those are fair ways to get to me.
Okay, awesome. And if people had questions about Araya and what you're doing there, what would be the best way for them to kind of find information about
So the Araya website is actually newmexicosleeptmj.com. newmexicosleeptmj.com. We do have 3 other practices that have their own independent websites, but if you want to know about Araya specifically, it's newmexicosleeptmj.com.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Antani, there's a I don't know, there's a calmness to you which is really nice, and it's interesting that there's a fierceness to you underneath that, and by understanding this is it starts with you. I love the message that you're giving out, because what it does is it enables you to channel that, and I think that's a huge thing. Really, really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's the end of your day, and that I'm sure that it's the end of your day, it's the end of your week, and you're willing to join and share your perspective, share your knowledge with us. So really, really appreciate that, and love the mindset that you have about trust is about letting go, and thank you for sharing that with us.
It's my pleasure. I hope that some of your listeners and viewers get to enjoy this. Me talking about my experience.
That is fantastic. Hey, folks, first of all, thank you for joining Dental Voice, and thank you for taking the time to listen to Dr. Antani. Please, if you have questions for him, or if the context of what he's been sharing resonates with you, reach out to him, ask him. I love that he's so open about it, and really pragmatic about what he went through. It is true. People have the ability to do that. Start with yourself. If you found value in this information or what you heard today, please hit the like button, hit the follow button, and all that type of stuff. If you really loved it, share it with other people, and reach out to Dr. Antani and ask some questions. Really appreciate it, sir. Have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Is that cool? Would you be willing to join us a little bit later and kind of update on how things are going?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me know when. I'll be happy to talk more about it.
Awesome. Hey, folks, thank you for joining us on Dental Voice. We look forward to seeing you on our next episode, and thank you, Dr. Antani, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.